Welcome to Sykes, the Bottom Line Pharmacy Podcast, your regular dose of pharmacy CPA advice to fuel your bottom line, featuring pharmacists, key vendors, and other innovators.
Your checks, yes, you can call me, because we the best, Sykes & Company. We the best, Sykes & Company. Your accounting is a mess, there's no need for you to stress. Go online and request from the best. We the best, Sykes & Company. We the best, Sykes & Company, yes.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Sykes Bottom Line Pharmacy Podcast. And today we got a special guest with Doug Hoey with the NCPA. And Doug, it's always a pleasure to have you on as a repeat vendor here with us, or what should I say, a repeat organization. How about that?
Yeah, no, I might be a repeat offender. Just depends on, the listener, I suppose, and what I have to say.
Well, I don't know about all that because, the NCPA with your leadership is a really impressive group of people to work with from my experience. So,
we have a great team. We do.
You really do.
I've been blessed, been fortunate to have a great team around me. They, to a person, they do good work. And I think it's important that they believe in this stuff. Like it's not right. We've got about 50 people here, so I'm not going to swear allegiance for every one of them, but for a lot of them, like it really matters what we're doing here, which is to help independent pharmacy owners, help them not just survive, but to thrive and succeed and help patients. I mean, we drink the Kool-Aid. We drink it deep.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely in your blood there.
Really quick, I just want to plug. I came in April. I guess it went from April to May to the fly-in for the first time. So that was quite an experience. You guys did an awesome job organizing that, and it's quite an event. I told Scotty he's got to at least go to that next year because it was impressive. So we just did that. And then we just did the workshop, the NCPA ownership workshop ahead of McKesson last week. And again, a great group of your staff that run that and organize that every trimester, and a good group. They are very eager to open stores. So great program. Like we always plug that. We love the workshop.
I appreciate that, Bonnie, because, the ownership workshop has been around for about 30 years now. And it was one of the first programs. It had started by the time I came to NCPA, and it was one of the first programs I started working on when I came here. So it's always had a special place in my heart, and it symbolizes, what we're trying, part of what we're trying to do here at NCPA, which is to help create new independent pharmacy owners. There's a lot of economic headwinds, and yet there are still opportunities because, pharmacists, pharmacy owners are very resilient, entrepreneurial people, and thank goodness they're here to find solutions, not only to keep your business running, but also to help patients. Because if it was just the assembly line of chains, then there would be a lot of patients that would fall off that assembly line.
Yeah.
What a mess that would be. Well, Doug, guess we'll kind of jump right in here. I know there's been some setbacks with, and gosh knows you guys work so hard over there fighting this thing, but back in December, that got kicked out at the last minute. Big, beautiful bill, Senate parliamentarian kicked it right out. So it's just those out of your control setbacks. Gosh knows, I know it's difficult where you guys are sitting because you're in it every day fighting for this stuff. But it just makes you just have to keep grinding even harder, and you just can't give up. So I have seen where I think it was Representative Carter put out the PBM, its own bill, right? Or act,
Yes.
if you will. Tell us a little bit about that and kind of the mood there with in Congress.
Yeah, so it's called the PBM Reform Act. And I do want to mention a couple things you mentioned where, defeat was snatched out of the jaws of victory. In December, this is the bill to fund the government. Both sides agreed to it, and of course they don't agree on anything, but they both agreed to it, both the Democrats and Republicans. and one tweet killed it. And then fast forward to June for the big beautiful bill, and the Senate parliamentarian, like you said, a very, very technical issue. It wasn't about the substance of the matter. It was about how much money it saves, and it's complicated, but
Yeah.
it wound up having to be removed from that bill. So Buddy Carter's bill, which is not just Buddy, it's Buddy's is the lead on it, but what I've been saying about the PBM Reform Act is that it is pharmacy's version of the big beautiful bill, but it's the big beautiful bipartisan bill.
It is. I saw there's a bunch of bipartisan co-sponsors on
absolutely. And it's the same stuff, the same pharmacy content that was in December that both parties in the House pushed forward. And so it's gone through all the content has gone through committees. The committees have chewed it up and spit it out, and it's actually they haven't really chewed up. The committees have passed it. So it's gone through all the political sausage making, all of the content of what Buddy put in this bill, because it went through it in December. So it's, we are hoping it's preloaded for passage. But one thing that's gone on in Congress, and I looked this up before one of we were talking about the wholesaler trade shows, and I was on a panel at one of them. And in the first 2 years of the first Trump administration, Congress passed almost 1,100 pieces of legislation. I think it was 1,085, something like that, in the first 2 years with Trump 1. In the first 6 months of Trump 2, Congress has passed 20. Almost 1,100 in 2 years versus 20 in 6 months. And I know 6 months is shorter than 2 years, but it's 1/4 of the amount of 2 years. So they've passed 20. So I just mentioned that to say they haven't passed much. I mean, there's a lot of executive orders. There's a lot of activity, but Congress hasn't passed much of anything. So we are hopeful that this PBM Reform Act, because this PBM Reform Act, just as a refresher, would reform Medicaid across the country. Some states have gone ahead and done it because they couldn't wait on the feds, which totally understand. But this would codify it federally. It would require reasonable and relevant contracts in Medicare, which we see as a first step. It doesn't solve all the problems in Medicare, but it is a first step in correcting the problems we have in Medicare. And now, just Medicare and Medicaid together.
Does that define reasonable? Wasn't that a issue, like defining what is reasonable?
Yeah, it doesn't. There is a part of it that says the cost to dispense is part of reasonable and relevant. So it doesn't say reasonable is, I'm just going to make up a number, $15. That's reasonable. Right. It doesn't attach a number to it, but it says the cost to dispense is part of what is reasonable and not reasonable. And as we know, most dispensing fees coming out of the Medicare contracts are, less than $1, less than 50 cents. Mm-hmm. So that we would say any objective person would say 50 cents is not reasonable when cost of dispense studies show it's more like $12 to $15. Mm-hmm. And there would be actually funding to have not arbitration, but people who would decide what is reasonable and relevant. And the other thing about it is right now, because Congress, when they passed Medicare way back in 2003, they turned the program over to the PBMs. They just, washed their hands of it almost and turned it over to the PBMs. This would say there's actually someone that we could advocate with that says, here's what reasonable and relevant is, versus right now when we go to CMS essentially says, out of our control, it was all outsourced to the PBMs. I mean, that's not their exact words, but we get that answer a lot when we complain to them about these underwater contracts that pharmacies are forced to sign as take it or leave it. So this PBM Reform Act is a big deal. It just got a number. I just heard like about an hour ago. It's HR 4317. HR 4317. So when we're going to be asking our members, the whole pharmacy land, to be calling members of Congress, and they have a bill number now. It's 4317. And one other thing, and I'll be quiet because I know I'm on a roll here. But
that is great.
It's this bill, the impact of this PBM Reform Act, of course, it impacts pharmacists and pharmacy owners. But I think it's important to make the point, too, that it also impacts patients, taxpayers, employers, and we're trying to get those groups also to help push this bill forward. So it's great that it's pharmacy, but let's expand the noise. Let's make it louder, so it's not only pharmacy's voice, but we also have taxpayers and employers and consumers, and it does impact them too. So when our pharmacy members talk to members of Congress about it, we're asking them to make the point that it's about reforming payment for pharmacy, but it's also helping taxpayers, it's helping consumers, it's helping employers too.
Yeah. Is there, I guess this is a silly question for Congress, but is there any timeline you guys are thinking with this? I mean, we've got the fiscal year in September. They're already talking about continuing resolutions or this or that. Would it be thrown in with that, or maybe a end of the year push for something they usually do? I don't know what you guys are hearing on that front.
Yeah, that's a great question. I asked our head of government affairs, Ann Cassidy, the exact same question just very recently. And we don't know. We'd love for it to be a standalone bill. Standalone bills are pretty rare these days. They used to be a lot more common, but they're very rare these days, which is, at least for our issue, I think is unfortunate. So it could be, the government's end of the year is September 30th. They're on a October 1st to September 30th fiscal year. So it could be that's a possible vehicle. Again, we'd love for it to be standalone. We're also, we're talking about the urgency of this, that, hey, Congress, quit twiddling your thumbs or whatever you're doing. Get this needs to get passed. So the vehicle is, it's not crystal clear yet. We'd rather it didn't kind of get tied up in the mess that can be the end of the year, the end of the fiscal year. We've seen that movie before, and we didn't like how it turned out. So standalone would be our first choice. Honestly, we'll take it however we can get it, but we want to get it. I mean, it's
10-yard line here. Gosh.
I mean, it's
a 1-yard line.
The frustration is, want to be upbeat, want to be optimistic, and we are, because it saves money, it saves taxpayer dollars, but enough's enough. I mean, Congress passed this. There's no excuse not to pass this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's get so close. You gotta just keep pushing. You gotta keep grinding at it, and that's just the way it is. I tell pharmacy owners they wear a lot of hats, and one of them is advocacy. So you gotta be advocating day in and day out.
Yeah, and it is something where you kind of, a lot of the work we do, there's a beginning and an end, and you know that you're going to do whatever your effort is, and it'll be done by this point, and if you do it well, this is what happens. If you don't do it well, this is what happens. There's a consequence. Advocacy is not that black and white. I mean, it's something that's, the work is never done, which is one of the things I think can be frustrating for members, is because, we like for there to be a beginning and an end. And hey, once I do this, then this will happen. Advocacy is a never-ending story. There should be by passage of this bill, that's the end for now. But candidly, as soon as this passes, we're going to start working on the next bill,
The next one. Yep.
to improve Medicare. Medicare, this would help Medicare, but that's probably the biggest thing I hear from our members is, depending on what state they're coming from. Some states they're still deep in Medicaid managed care and just getting hammered on their Medicaid prescriptions, but across the board, just Medicare. That's probably the number one complaint I hear about from our members is just Medicare reimbursement is atrocious.
Yeah. Doug, switching gears here, what about the Medicare drug pricing, the top 10 starting next year? Where can you give us a little summary of that and what you guys, what the thinking is there, what kind of impact that's going to have? Just looking ahead here to that next year. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is, like you mentioned, it's the top 10 drugs in Medicare. So people, probably most listeners have heard about that the government is now negotiating pricing for the top 10 most commonly dispensed drugs in Medicare. And it's some, big names like Eliquis, Farxiga, Januvia, and others. And what it's going to do, so it starts on January 1st, 2026. And so the government has negotiated lower prices called the MFP. So it's a new term. MFP stands for Maximum Fair Price. MFP, Maximum Fair Price. So the government's negotiated these lower prices for these 10 drugs. And the discounts are on average about 65%. I think for Januvia, it's 79%. I think that was the biggest one. And then it kind of, falls there. Probably average about 65% discount off of WAC. On January 1st, Medicare beneficiaries will be able to buy those drugs at MFP. So 65% below WAC. Well, pharmacies are buying at around WAC, depending on their wholesaler contract. I mean, maybe they're WAC minus a few basis points, but hovering around WAC. So one of the questions is, how does the pharmacy get paid that difference between what they're buying it for around WAC and what they're going to get paid, MFP, which again is about roughly a 65% discount. And so this is an issue we've seen coming for a couple of years.
Yep.
And we've really, Ron Hauser on our team, one of our pharmacists on our team, has really led the way on this, advocating to CMS that pharmacies we have to get trued up in that delta between WAC and MFP. We've got to get trued up in a timely manner, in compliance with prompt pay. We need to get trued up within 14 days, because otherwise the cash flow problems are going to be a major problem for pharmacies. And we've done some research with 3Axis on what kind of a problem that would be, and sent that to CMS. The other thing, and we don't negotiate contracts at NCPA. That's what the PSAOs do. But in our conversations with manufacturers, we've said WAC needs to be, at least WAC needs to be your reimbursement point, your true up point. Because again, most pharmacies are buying at a few points less than WAC, but the cost to maybe have to float this program for, even if it's a few days, there should be some value in that. The manufacturers have until September to announce how they're going to true up their product. Like, will they be at WAC? Will they be at WAC minus? Some rumors have said that they'll be at NADAC, and we've told them that that's their choice if they want to do NADAC. But our members, by the surveys we've sent out, have told us if you use NADAC and the PBMs are reimbursing at MFP, then a lot of pharmacies are going to choose not to dispense your drug, and they're just at NADAC. Pharmacies are going to be, they'd be losing
underwater,
at least the cost of dispense and plus the cash flow. So it's going to roll out on January 1st. We've sent a lot of warnings to CMS that, look, it needs to be at least WAC minus MFP, and that prompt pay needs to be paid within 14 days. And if you don't do that, a lot of pharmacies are going to choose not to dispense those drugs. And, I think it's a little bit of hear me now, believe me later.
Mm-hmm.
But independents dispense 40% of all these drugs in Medicare. So if they're forced to lose money and they make the choice not to dispense them, the program will fail. And we have told the White House that. We have told CMS that the program will fail if you do not take care of these pharmacies appropriately and treat them fairly.
Yeah, and that's just unfortunate, that it just comes down to choosing whether you can serve a patient or not, which is kind of the environment it is now, with certain drugs and the way reimbursements are and things like that.
And the good news in that, not to, because I don't want to be like just Debbie Downer. The manufacturer, so far, the PBM contracts we've seen, they are reimbursing pharmacies at MFP, which frankly, I expected them to try to pay pharmacies less than MFP. And so far, this first year, and who knows what tricks they may try to pull, because we know PBMs love to throw, gotchas in there. But if they actually reimburse at MFP, and if manufacturers actually reimburse at WAC, it can be an okay scenario for the owner, because they'll pick up, those couple basis points or however many basis points, they're able to buy at a discount, which they, basically they'll get paid almost, normally if they're at WAC minus MFP. So it could be an okay scenario. We just need to see how it plays out, but we also have to, plan for the worst, expect the best kind of thing. And so that we've warned the White House and CMS that if it's the worst, then the program will fail. Pharmacies also have to enroll in the MTF, the Medicare Transaction Facilitator, and each individual pharmacy has to do that. It can't be done for the pharmacy, which, again, we've told CMS, trying to get 18,000 independent pharmacies, 54,000 pharmacies overall enrolled in this MTF, Medicare Transaction Facilitator. It would have been much better if you would allowed, the PSAO or a group to enroll them all, but that is, for whatever reason, they chose not to do it that way. And maybe they couldn't. Maybe there was some technology barrier. But each pharmacy is going to have to decide if they want to participate, and they're going to have to enroll themselves in the MTF part of this program. So a lot going on. And
I was about to say, that's so much.
It's a lot. Pharmacy owners are, they're trying to run the business and do the operation. And here's one more thing. This MFP, this maximum fair price, it's interesting because it's 10 drugs this year in 27, and they'll add 15 more drugs, add more drugs in 20. Eventually, it's going to be every drug. And it's going to change. Commercial plans are going to see, because it's public, what MFPs are. You can go online and look at, how much, whatever the MFP that's been negotiated is. And commercial payers are going to look at that and say, am I getting that deal? And it also cuts a lot of the rebate games out, because that 65% right now is mostly going to PBMs in the form of rebates, fee bates, GPO fees, and whatever other made-up name they want to call it. The extortion that they get from the manufacturers. That 65% is rolled up in there, and that's going to be out in the open for everyone to see. So it's going to cause some changes in the whole how prescriptions are paid for, not just in Medicare, but across the board. Maybe not in 26, but in a couple years, this MFP is going to reset the market, and this fat that the PBMs have been, again, extorting from the manufacturers, it's going to be out in the open. It's going to be a lot harder for them to do it in their shady deals.
Well, that's a huge win there. That's a huge thing, right? Because that gets rid of that brings out some transparency and kind of exposes what goes on behind the scenes.
It does. And I think it may embolden the manufacturers a little bit too, because right now PBMs play one off the other, and in this scenario, it's all going to be out in the sunlight. So, PBMs are trying to play two companies that provide therapeutic substitutable products. Well, one can see what kind of discount the other is giving, and can say, you know what, I'm going to give a 65% discount, but here's how that rebate. It's not going to be a rebate. I'm just going to lower the price. We're going to go back to the way it used to be in the 80s, when the selling price was the selling price.
Yep.
It wasn't, some artificially inflated price that then you added the payment to the PBM to inflate the price. Which there will be I'm sure a reaction to that by PBMs, and they'll try to, figure out a way to milk some more money out, but it'll be harder for them.
Right.
Yeah. So, from a pharmacy standpoint, I think if we're at our acquisition cost plus a fair dispensing fee plus a performance fee, because we want our high performing, we think independents are going to outperform chains. And if chains and independents have the same dispensing fee, we think independents should be rewarded for that higher performance, the higher quality product. As our president, Jeff Harrell, says, the premium product that independents are, there should be a reward for that. So
certainly,
we think it's going to help stabilize the marketplace in the coming years. And it won't be like tomorrow, but in the coming years, we see some stability coming into the marketplace.
So lastly, the administration, the White House, Trump administration, Doug, you don't see, well, we all know he's been on camera saying, I don't like the middleman, or whatever he means by that. I don't know if he's gotten specific, but so there is a sense there, I guess, that, the middleman here in the system is a problem from the White House perspective. Is there any, would you agree to that? And then secondly, do you see where they're going to flip all of this, the IRA, which is the Medicare drug price negotiation, I believe, program was in that? Are they going to flip all that on its head and executive order, it's out, we're going to go back to something else? Or, I don't know how all that works, but what is the administration going to do, if anything, looking forward, I guess?
Well, the president can be pretty unpredictable.
Right.
I don't think that's a big secret. I think just from what I'm seeing, and when he talks about the middleman, and I think he has said PBM at times, because I was getting frustrated. Say PBM, please. Don't just say middleman, because we think of it as middleman, but maybe others think of it as something else. But I think he has said PBM somewhere along the way. I think this administration will be very marketplace based, and so my hope would be that they would have support the legislation that Congressman Carter's working on, or has introduced with, again, bipartisan legislation. I don't see an executive order, hey, PBMs are bad, ban PBMs. I don't see something like that. I think, though, that they will try to push marketplace reforms. So I don't think they'll ban rebates, for example, but in a way, if through MFP pricing, through what they've been calling direct-to-consumer pricing, through the most favored nations, the MFN program, that's, the U.S. is paying too much in drugs, and we're going to pay the average of the 5 countries, that program, MFN, most favored nations, that would have a similar effect to the MFP as far as exposing, like if the manufacturer said, hey, yeah, I am selling it more in the U.S. than I am in the U.K. because I have to pay all these rebates to manufacturers. if I get rid of those, I talked to a manufacturer, life science company CEO who told me they're paying 68% in fees and made up fees to the PBMs. If you take that 68% away, then you've got prices still aren't as low as, say, UK, Canada, Australia, et cetera, but a lot closer, a lot closer. And I think that by pressuring manufacturers to get rid of that fluff in the middle, in a way, they are getting rid of rebates.
Doug, I guess we'll just go ahead and wrap it up here. Get a close here. Thank you again, Doug, for hopping on. Anybody that's listening in, hope you support the NCPA and keep the fight going, because they're right there on the goal line here, Doug. So you guys keep it up, keep fighting, keep pushing, and get it done. So we support you, and I hope everybody else listening in will support you as well.
We appreciate that, Scotty. It's great to be on the show again, and look forward to seeing you guys at our annual meeting in New Orleans. So we're in the middle of October in New Orleans, so that's only just a few months away.
All right, that sounds good. We'll see you there.
Yes.